Duffy had a question. Is it important? Is it about Wawa?
It was about whether I wanted what size hurricane jacket.
Which size are you wearing?
This is a medium and a small.
We'll talk about this in a bit.
We'll get to spread
Sorry,
happy in a
okay.
moment.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Sorry about
Deal
that.
with these
Terry,
important issues,
I'm
right?
Eric, Andy, and Lee from Spread Happy, and we're talking about an important topic today. It sounds pretty simple on the surface, but actually I know a lot of people struggle with this. I struggle with this.
Definitely do.
And we've been talking about for the month of June, trying to be happier.
Yeah, it's how can we bring more happiness into our life. It's actually the Spread Happy mantra, which is be grateful, be loving, be passionate, so be present. So the second step is to be loving. And it's loving to ourselves and others, but most importantly, loving to ourselves. And just going to give you a little background on this. You see, we are already whole and perfect. But we think that everything that we want is outside of us, and when we get it, then we'll feel better about ourselves. And that's why a lot of times relationships don't work, because we think, well, I don't love myself very much, but if I love that person and they love me, then I'll get what I need. So that becomes very needy and very uncomfortable. And the truth is it never works when we're expecting somebody else to fill us.
Okay.
So, yes.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I know you're talking about, loving yourself, and I think it's hard, especially when you get this voice in your head that's telling you the opposite.
Right. We have all the crazy stories that are running around in our head. And actually, when we're born, I'll just give you a little bit of background. When we're born, we're these perfect, loving beings. Like, babies don't think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not cute enough. Babies don't think like that. But what happens is, as we're being taken care of by caretakers, and we start to believe that happiness is outside of us because we get a lot of love from them. We feel really good when we're around them. Something happens, we do something silly like, we take off our diaper and put poop on our crib, and then our caretakers get angry at us. This is sometimes what babies do.
That's oddly specific.
Okay.
Well, that's
go with that.
It's not like
But it's happened.
That.
Right.
My sister.
Right. I mean, babies do that,
Right.
And the caretakers get frustrated, and suddenly these people that are so loving towards us are not so loving temporarily. And we want that love and care back. So there begins the belief that love is outside of us. So that's how young this belief happens, that we need someone to love us in order for us to feel whole.
And that's why it's so deep-rooted.
So deep-rooted.
So how do you change that? How do you work on loving yourself and creating that positivity?
Yeah.
It goes back to the ego and this idea that we need, the idea of rejection. We connect rejection with love, but in actual fact it's two separate things. The rejection is the ego part. Are we socially accepted and so on? And this is why we sometimes get the two mixed up between love and obsession. Now that sounds like excessive, but it's true.
So true.
So many people say, I'm so in love with that person, I can't live without them. But that's not actually love. When you love a person, the song, what is it? If we love somebody, sorry about that.
Did you see Gary's face?
At least you were singing.
You can see that Andy's the singer in the family, right? But if you love somebody, set them free. Because when you're loving of others, you're creating that love. And when you're loving of yourself, you're creating that love for others. It seems to be like that, what do you call it, the oxymoron sort of thing. It works that way. So the more that you can create this feeling of love in yourself, that pours out to others. And there's no more of that obsession, and there's no more of that fear of not getting the love back.
I hope this isn't too simplistic, but I get caught on, what does that look like to love yourself? What does that mean?
Yeah, you know what? It's that I'm comfortable in my own skin. I am okay with who I am. I'm forgiving to myself. I'm not judging myself. I'm just problem is that we are constantly being bombarded by the world to say we have to look a certain way to be okay, we have to have a certain job to be okay, we have to be in a certain relationship to be okay. So we've got all these outside influences telling us we're not okay until these things happen. So when we recognize that they're just stories and we're really okay as we are, because who's doing the judging? It's all coming from inside of us. Every single judgment is coming from inside of us.
You know, I heard once some advice from someone, I forget who told me this, but they said that you should treat yourself the way you treat your friends outside.
100%.
Because a lot of the times I feel like we treat ourselves way worse than we treat the people we care about around us. And we should treat ourselves, you know, you ask yourself, would you be friends with the voice in your head?
Right. Oh, that's so beautiful, Terry. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
You never say that to me.
Because I'm brilliant. I love myself and I'm brilliant.
Roby,
He needs to work on the self-love because he's still looking for that validation from the outside.
I am. And if you would like to send it, call me.
That is so not true.
Okay.
You're like totally different than when I first met you. 100 times.
The therapy is helping.
It is.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's a small crack.
Stop.
Let's not go there. That was before the camera went on. But anyway, it's not easy, but it's doable, and you will see your whole world will change when you start being nicer to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's really where it begins, is building the boundaries so that we're not constantly giving. We're taking care of ourselves first. It goes back to what we talked about at 9 o'clock, that you can't give away what you don't have. So if you don't have love for yourself, you can't genuinely give away love.
Can we just role play for a second?
Oh.
Because I'm still.
Oh, hello.
Well, I mean.
My husband's here.
Oh,
Why today?
So I'm just having a hard time grasping how this makes you a better friend, a better partner.
Perfect.
If say you want to do something, I don't know, like mow the lawn, but you just don't have the energy to do it. And you do it anyway because you don't want your partner to have to do it.
Right.
So from what you're saying is I shouldn't mow the lawn because I'm exhausted.
Well, I think being authentic will create a much better relationship with yourself and with your partner. And what was coming to mind was when we are loving to ourselves, we release expectations from other people. Mm-hmm. So we don't expect somebody else to do something to make us happy.
Oh, yes.
So that's where
I do that all the time.
interesting.
Yeah.
I do something, so you better do
Yeah.
this.
Right, or else. But when we're okay with ourselves, we don't have that expectation of, well, you better show up in a certain way for me to be happy or else I'm going to be mad at you. Mm-hmm. That's where the whole, what you were talking about in the beginning, is if you love someone, set them free. It's like if you love someone, you want them to be happy, whatever that looks like. You don't have to change them or mold them or make them be a certain way for you to be okay.
To let them be them.
Let them be who they are. Yes.
And
be
lazy, not mow the lawn.
Yeah, what if you don't like who they really are?
Well, then you don't date them.
Who are you with? Is this a good match
Then
for
you
me?
don't date them.
Yeah.
Listen, Miss Brilliant. I know you have all the answers.
No, but I mean, I really do think it starts with loving yourself. And it's a process, right?
And, well, but that's what's so tricky about it, is like in your mind you think you're doing the right thing, but then it backfires.
Well, because then what happens is you build resentments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then it becomes, I did this, I did that, I did this and I didn't want to. Well, the other person doesn't know that you were tired and that you did that to.
Oh, yes, they do.
Are you talking about someone specific? It sounds like you have some resentments, that you're talking about someone specific.
Totally. My life is one resentment after another.
Oh.
We may need your help.
we may need to bring in some reinforcements, some backups here.
But it does. No, this is good because like I'm understanding it for the first time from what you're saying, why it makes sense to focus on yourself first.
Yeah.
I like that idea of just releasing.
Why are you laughing at me?
Yeah, because then we're, first of all,
I'm vulnerable here.
Oh my Lord, Cancer Moon.
when we have expectations, we're basing our happiness on somebody else knowing what we need.
Right.
You know, it's freeing to just be okay with yourself no matter what the circumstances are. So it doesn't mean you stay in relationships that aren't healthy. It doesn't mean you enable people. And what else? You were saying something else this morning that I wanted to bring up. I don't remember what it was.
We spoke about so many things.
I know. It was, we were talking about not enabling, and also, the neediness.
Right. The neediness.
Yes, that.
Yeah. But I feel that it's also the fact that it's like if you're in a bad mood and somebody leaves something out, you're going to react completely differently to when everything's going your way. You're feeling good about yourself. You're feeling good about everything else. So it's second nature. You understand that it's so obvious in that sense. Well, when you love yourself, and again, how do you do that? I appreciate, but when you love yourself, you're seeing the whole world, not just each person. You're seeing the whole world from a different perspective.
Exactly, so you don't get so annoyed.
Right. You don't get annoyed because most of the time, everything that's happening outside of you is a mirror of what's happening inside of you. And it's sometimes difficult. It's like, what? The fact that they didn't do the dishes is a mirror of me? Yeah. Well, it may well be. It may well be in a roundabout way. It might not be so obvious initially. And a lot of the time, we don't actually know. But the most important thing is when we start to look within and we start to build that love within, the outside, as we perceive it, remember, I'm not saying like voodoo magic or anything, but the outside as we perceive it starts to change. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, that your whole life starts to change.
So if you've done this since you were a baby and you smeared the poo.
I did not do
that. Why don't you just go back to the poo?
Go ahead.
But how much do you have to practice to not fall back into that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's ingrained.
You know, I said to Lee on the way here, you know, we have these Spread Happy magnets and it has our logo and, you know, it says be grateful, be loving, be passionate, be. And we have it on our refrigerator and my daughter has it in her room, but we don't have one in our room. And I said to Leah this morning, we need to have one up on our mirror because I forget. You know, I do this, we practice what we preach enough to recognize that when I am upset, it's never about the situation. It's about, for some reason, I'm expecting the situation to be different for me to feel better. So that's about me. It doesn't mean that I like the situation, but if I'm getting triggered by it, if I'm really feeling uncomfortable and I'm starting to feel less than, then I'm emotionally attached and I'm not being the most loving person that I can be. So it doesn't mean that things don't happen that annoy you. It just means that you are not, your happiness is not dependent on it. You can recognize, I don't like this, but your happiness, your fulfillment is not dependent on it when you have self-love. So self-love begins with recognizing the stories that are running through your head. You know, what am I telling myself? Would I tell this to my best friend? You know, would I tell this to a child? It all begins with awareness. And this is what we say to our clients is that 90% of growth comes from awareness. It comes from, here I go again. That's where it begins. It begins with the awareness, and then you create the shift. And it's experiential. You can listen to, you know, a million recordings or YouTubes and go to see all the greatest spiritual teachers and read all the books. But if you don't begin to practice what you're learning and put it into play, it doesn't mean anything because everything is experiential. I can know something, but if I don't practice it, if I don't stop myself when I feel like I'm getting upset, that I'm feeling less than, if I don't recognize, wait a second, that's not true. That's just a story. Then I will never change, and I will always have expectations outside of myself for my own happiness.
And I would say also that it's not a case of sometimes when we talk about self-love and so on, people think, oh, so you're just going to walk around with a big smile on your face all day and anybody can do whatever they want and it won't bother you whatsoever. Well, no. Because think about it. If you love a dog or a cat, that's a simple one for most people. They're like, you know, it's unconditional until they poop on the carpet, right? It's not that you don't get annoyed. It's not that you don't get annoyed if somebody didn't do the dishes. It's just that you're not taking your love away from them because they haven't met your expectations. You know, you don't throw the cat out because she, you know, cuffed up a hairball.
Although I've done that before.
Oh, okay. Maybe that was a
I should be telling people this out loud. No, he hasn't.
I did. The indoor cat became outdoor when she pooed on the rug outside of the shower because she hated me.
Well, I hate you too if you tossed me out.
She also peed
on an accident.
She also peed on my pillow.
Oh, she had something to tell you.
Yeah.
That's a different.
So that was a mirror.
That's a very different
thing. She seemed to be so happy outside.
Yeah. You keep telling yourself that, Eric.
Are there any comments? Did you say there were some comments, Gary?
No, a lot of people watching.
Okay.
Someone get some applause.
I know
no
that
comments yet.
started practicing whenever I get a negative thought in my head. I I started realizing it, and I didn't realize how many negative thoughts were actually popping up in my head. And I try to now stop and flip them around to something positive. Try. It's not always easy.
Yeah, and it begins with just recognizing it. You don't even have to start to flip it. Oh no, wait, I'm great. It's that acceptance of, okay, you know what? I'm being hard on myself. Mm-hmm. It's just recognizing the thoughts, and that's how things change. Is it begins with recognizing what's running through your head. Because remember, when we judge ourselves, we judge others. And I love what you said, Lee. It's like if somebody's having a bad day, if you go at them, it's going to get worse. But if you can treat them with love and compassion the way you'd want to be treated, you know, that's the way that relationships become easier and more loving. But it starts from us, because if we don't have it to give, it's impossible.
And that's it. It's the same with self.
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day and you start giving yourself that sort of big talking to, you know, internally, then it's going to get progressively worse. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So give us a preview. What's the next step?
Oh, the next step is passion. How can we have more passion in our lives?
Yeah, looking forward to next Monday. Yes.
Passion and purpose.
Before we do that, I just want to say just one little technique, because that's what people want, don't they? And that is, I was told like years and years ago, a little sales technique. And they said that when you're talking to a client or a customer or something like that, you look at them and in your mind you're going, I love you. And what they used to say was, that it's very hard to get annoyed at somebody or reject somebody who's thinking in their minds, I love you. Well, what about when you look in the mirror, you know, and when you're looking at other people and you're thinking, I love you, as you're saying, will you put those dishes away, you know?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
it's a great technique. It really does.
But you can't say it though.
No, you
I
just
can see it now.
You think
now at work. Well,
yeah, you don't want to say it.
I love you, Aaron.
That freaky person.
That would become a little weird. Yeah.
But I think the most important one is to yourself.
Yes.
You know,
in the
it's to
mirror
yourself.
and feeling.
No,
Eric?
it's not easy. It's not easy only because we've been taught that we're not supposed to do that. You know, we've been taught that we're imperfect. And
well, can I work up to it? Maybe like in fuego.
You could do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever makes you happy, right?
Exactly.
Like Gary's just
Poor
shaking his
Gary.
head.
Poor Gary's going to need therapy after this.
All right. So what do you have coming up?
Oh, so we have our Tuesday nights, our happiness coaching series. We have a happiness circle on Tuesday nights at Anatara Yoga beginning next week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's going to be super fun.
Awesome.
So new topic each week. It's a great group.
location.
What time?
6:30 to 8. And
Not
we
too
have
late
our
No, that's
shift.
not bad.
It'll cut into happy hour, but
Yeah, it'll,
Listen!
you can do it, Tara.
That's not bad. I live really close.
You do live really close. You would love it. It's a good group.
Your shift
Our
happens.
shift happens
this
weekend in Naples.
Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah, it's in
Father's
Naples.
Day weekend.
No, it's the following week.
Okay.
22nd and 23rd. Yeah. And we have our recovery coaching. So if you're interested in learning how to become a coach, it doesn't have to be in the field of recovery. It's getting a coaching certification. We do specialize in this certification in recovery from addictions and also mental health. It's a great coaching that's coming up in July as well.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
that's what we have.
A lot of good
Plenty.
stuff.
Yeah. Good
Busy
stuff.
summer.
It is. It's all good stuff. Yes.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, I love you.
That was fabulous.
Oh, that's embarrassing.